The foundation chain stitches are the simplest thing to do. You just chain. The built-on foundations, or the built-up foundations, those that incorporate a single, half double, double, or triple crochet, are one of the most confusing and useful things that you can learn in your crochet toolbox. You need to understand what you're doing, and then you won't be confused no matter what kind of stitch you want to make. So here's the anatomy of a built-on foundation chain. For instance, single crochet uses 2 to begin. If you use 1 loop to start a stitch, you use 2. If you use 2 loops to start a stitch, you use 3. You add 1 to whatever stitch you're making. So we have the stitch for the single, and we have a stitch for the foundation. Okay? Now, we're going to go through the double V of this first chain. This is going to make the foundation loop for our next stitch. This is not part of our next stitch. This is part of the foundation chain that we're building on. So our loop is already through our foundation. All we need to do is draw up a loop to start our stitch. There's our foundation, our base. We draw up the stitch, pull it through, and now we have the foundation stitch. Oops. We have the foundation stitch and the 2 loops we drew up on the hook. The 2 loops on the hook, and right below that is your foundation stitch. So you go through both of those. Draw up that loop, which is the base that you're putting your hook through to bring up a loop to make your stitch. So now you bring up your loop to make your stitch, and then you bring up and make your single crochet. And if you look here on the side, you see the 2 loops you drew your hook through. The one behind them is your last foundation stitch. And we're going to make another foundation stitch for the next stitch. Then we're going to draw a loop through that foundation stitch to make our single crochet. Through the bottom, pull up a loop. That is not a single crochet. That is the loop for your foundation. You have just put your hook through the loop of your foundation, and you're going to draw up a loop to finish your stitch. Just like that. Now, one thing that seems to be inevitable, because I've never found a way around it, is when you're bending over like this to get your foundation chain, you pull out your top hoop, and your top loops get very loose, and your foundation loops are, a lot tighter. So, 2 things you can do. Instead of coming around the end like this, you can try coming over the side. Doesn't work for me very well. You're still going to end up with longer top loops than long bottom ones. And try pulling it out more. Try to get your bottom as loose as your top. But when you're crocheting along and you're doing, the side of a 5-foot scarf, it's not as easy to remember to pull them out, and you end up with a little bow effect. And here's your bow effect. Your bottom stitches are nice and little. Your big ones, your top ones are big and stretched out. So what you're going to do with these bottom ones, like this, you hold it like this, and you just push in and pull out. Push in and pull out. And they loosen right up on you. That's perfectly straight. Your bottom stitches and your top stitches have equalized. Now that's really the fastest, easiest way I've found to be able to do a single foundation crochet and have it work nice and straight, even on both sides. Now, I'm going to switch from a single to a half double, right in the same chain. Here's my half double. You make a wrap for a half double. Now, back here you can see where the two single loops I went through for the single crochet. So the one behind it is my foundation. Now I have 3 loops on my hook. This is not for my half double. This is for my foundation. Don't forget your foundation. Pull up a loop from your foundation and complete your half double. Now half doubles are as easy as singles because you have 3 loops on your hook. Wrap your hook. Go through that foundation stitch. Get in there. Good boy. Pull out your foundation chain. Pull up a loop and finish your foundation stitch. Yarn over, go back down in there. Pull up your loop. Pull up another loop. Finish your foundation stitch. And again, as you can see, I tend to make my stitches smaller on the bottom than on the top. And it's just a matter of a little equalizing. My chain stays nice and straight. Now, so doing a half double crochet in a single is pretty much the same because your yarn is coming out of the bottom of your gathered stitches, and you either have 2 or 3 gathered loops, and it's really easy to tell that you have your back loop, you have the right loop. Now this is for a double, and I've got chained up 3 for the double, and the bottom one, the 4th one, that's the foundation. So it's a total chain of 4. You come through those 2 loops on the bottom, like that. I didn't yarn over. All that trouble and I didn't yarn over. Here we go. The beginnings are rough on me. I see other people doing it just like, no problem. Beginnings are rough. Okay. Now, I've gone through the bottom, which is the foundation for the double. I'm making a new double, so I need a new foundation. This stitch here I just came through, that I just brought up, that is my new foundation. So I bring a loop through it. Now I have 1, 2 foundation loops. Then I bring a loop through the first 2 and a loop through the second 2. Yarn over, and which one is it? You have to go back and you have to look at the anatomy of your stitch if you get lost. This is the last 2 loops you came through. This is the first 2 loops you came through. The one behind them is the foundation. Yarn over, bring a new loop up for your foundation. Bring a loop through that to start your stitch. And through 2, and through 2. Yarn over. Now here's the first 2 loops you went, here's the last 2 loops you went through. Here's the first 2 loops you went through. The one behind them is your foundation chain. Go through that, pull up a new foundation chain. Pull up a new foundation chain and pull up a loop in that foundation chain. And then finish your double. There's the last 2 loops you went through. There's the first 2 loops you went through. The one behind them is your foundation. And you won't get lost. Oh, I hate working with big hoops. Hooks. I like working with little ones. Big ones can drive me nuts. There. And I didn't yarn over. Arg. Okay. And then through. There's a whole lot of hooking when you're doing these doubles. You come down to your base. Bring up a loop. That's your new foundation chain. Bring up a loop and you're working on your foundation stitch. In this case, a double. Through 2 and through 2. Yarn over. Go down into your foundation chain. Pull up a new stitch in your foundation chain. Yarn over. Bring a loop through your stitch, your foundation chain, to make your stitch. Then you make your foundation stitch. Loop and then stitch. Think of the best way that it'll work for you. You can say chain 1 and then make your stitch. Or you can say, see, look here. See how this is twisted? It's like, okay, where am I? Wait a minute. Is this the one I go through? Is this the one I go through? Another way to do it, and turn it right side up. And you say, this stitch goes, this goes with this one, this goes with this one, this is on this one, on there, on there, on there, on there. So this one has to go on here. So you can see. Another one is, because different yarns, fluffy, bumpy, whatever, is going to give you trouble. Come through here, look for the last 2 you went through. I didn't seem to go through 2. I did. What did I do? A half double? Is that why I'm confused? Yes, I did. I did a half double. Yarn over. Go through your bottom loop. Bring up a loop. Go through a loop through that. And 2. And 2. And that's why I was confused. There's my 2 loops. There's my 2 loops. The next one is my base. Whew. Okay. Now, one way I do it is I'll go around and I'll say loop and stitch. Loop and stitch. Loop and stitch. Again, with the half doubles, you can have this curving because your bottom loops are going to be smaller than your top loops. So again, just twist and pull lightly, firmly. What you're doing is you're giving them an opportunity to transfer the sizes down through the stitch to the front and find their own. See how that open those up? I twisted my hook there. Look at that. No loop. Perfectly straight. Okay. Now once you've done that, you could do foundations for Tunisians, triples, quadruples, you name it. No problem. A connected stitch or a connected triple stitch is fun. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You would do 4 for a triple, so I'm doing 5. And this is a connected stitch like the Tunisian. So we're going to go 1, yarn over, 2, yarn over, and then through your base, to bring up a foundation loop. And you come through that loop, and then through 2, and through 2, and through 2, and then I just go through these. I don't usually. I do my connected stitches a different way, but I'm going to confuse the hell out of you otherwise. Now, with the Tunisian or connected stitch, you can tell real easy because you have this little stitch that is coming up as part of your chain. The one on the bottom of it is your base. So that's the one you want to go through. Right there. And bring up a base. And then bring up a base. And then you back off with 2, 2, and 2. And you have your connected triple, just like a Tunisian. You can also do I'll go behind these 2 stitches. Behind these. Oh, how about a knit one? That's a cool one. The Tunisian knit stitch going through these 2. And you can see in the bottom here. It's easier with the Tunisian because you can see how your stitches come up. You know that this bottom one here is your base. Go through that. Oops. Bring up a new base stitch. Put your yarn through your base stitch to bring up your loop. And then you back up your triples. Just like that. Go back through. Go back through. For this connection, I'm using the Tunisian knit stitch. Through the bottom. Bring up a stitch. You're going to stitch through your bottom base loop and then back off 2, 2, and 2. And you have your triple connected Tunisian style. You have your bottom chain, you have your top chain, and again, if it gets tight, there you go. These are so not hard to do. They're hard to begin. Once you understand the anatomy of what you're doing, how to find your bottom chain, you don't end up losing it. If you lose it, your bottom is going to come out looking weird, bumpy, off stitch, either too big or too small, or your thing's going to start sliding up because you're going through the side of your stitch instead of your bottom loop. But this should help you. I hope it did. Have a great day.